Picture this. It's Tuesday morning. The coffee is brewing, the sun is just starting to peek through the kitchen curtains, and no one calls to check in. No one knocks, no one texts. By Wednesday evening, the coffee pot is still half full, and nobody has noticed. This isn't a story from a distant place. This is happening right now in neighborhoods across America to real people, maybe even someone you know. Here's a number that should stop you in your tracks. Nearly 28% of adults over the age of 65 in the United States live alone. That's millions of men and women waking up every day without a spouse, without a caregiver, and sometimes without anyone checking in at all. Some of them are just fine. They've built a life they love. They have routines, hobbies, and a fierce sense of independence that most younger people admire. But others are quietly struggling, not because they've given up, but because no one ever showed them the practical, simple steps that can make living alone genuinely safe and even fulfilling. That's exactly what this video is about. We're going to share 5 real, actionable ways to stay safe while living alone, strategies that work in the real world, that don't require you to give up your independence or move somewhere you don't want to be. And we'll follow the story of Dorothy, a 72-year-old retired school teacher from Boise, Idaho. Dorothy has lived alone for 6 years since her husband Harold passed away. She grows tomatoes in her backyard, volunteers at the local library twice a week, and is fiercely proud of the fact that she handles her own finances, drives her own car, and has never asked her kids to do something she could do herself. But even Dorothy had some blind spots. Risks she hadn't thought about, and when she started addressing them, everything changed. If you've ever worried about yourself or an elderly loved one living alone, the next few minutes could genuinely make a difference, so stay with us. The hidden risks nobody talks about. Living alone offers something precious: freedom. You eat when you want, sleep when you want, and you never have to share the remote. But freedom also comes with responsibility, and for older adults, that responsibility includes being honest about the risks. Let's talk about what those risks actually look like. Medical emergencies, when every minute counts. Dorothy was in her kitchen one afternoon washing dishes when she noticed that her left hand felt strangely numb. She assumed she'd slept on it funny. She dried her hands and sat down to read. What Dorothy didn't know in that moment was that she was experiencing early warning signs of a TIA, a transient ischemic attack, sometimes called a mini stroke. The symptoms passed within an hour, and she didn't tell anyone for 3 days. That's the silent danger of living alone. There's no one there to say, "Something seems off, let's get you checked out." Falls are another enormous risk. Every year, roughly 1 in 4 Americans over 65 experiences a fall. Most of these happen at home, in the bathroom, on the stairs, or even just stepping off the porch. When someone is around, a fall is frightening but manageable. And then there are the slower emergencies: unmanaged diabetes, infections that spread, dehydration during a heat wave. These things don't always announce themselves loudly. They creep up, and when there's no one watching, they can escalate fast. Security threats. Scammers know you're alone. Dorothy got a phone call one October afternoon from a man who introduced himself as Agent David Mercer from the Social Security Administration. He told her that her Social Security number had been suspended due to suspicious activity, and that she would be arrested within 48 hours unless she paid a fine using gift cards. Dorothy's heart started pounding. She reached for her purse. Then she stopped. She remembered something her son had told her. "Mom, the government will never call and ask you to pay with gift cards, ever." She hung up and called her local police non-emergency line. The officer she spoke to told her it was a well-known scam and that they'd received dozens of similar reports from seniors in the area that week alone. Older adults are disproportionately targeted by scammers. Phone fraud, email phishing, fake utility workers at the door, romance scams online, they're all designed to exploit trust. And they work. Americans over 60 lose billions of dollars to fraud every single year. Beyond financial scams, there's physical security. A house where an older adult lives alone is sometimes seen as an easy target. Unlocked doors, poor lighting, and routines that are easy to predict can invite trouble. The threat you can't see, loneliness. This one doesn't get enough attention, and it should. After Harold died, Dorothy threw herself into activity, the library, her garden, her church group. But as months turned into years, some of those connections quietly faded. Friends moved away. Her church group dwindled. Her kids lived in different states and called when they could, but life got busy. Dorothy started spending more time inside. Days would pass without a real conversation. She told herself she was an introvert, that she valued her quiet, but she also started noticing that she felt foggy some mornings, that she wasn't motivated to cook real meals, that the pleasure she used to feel in her garden had gone a little gray. This is what chronic loneliness looks like from the inside, and the research is stark. Persistent social isolation increases the risk of cognitive decline, heart disease, depression, and even early death. It's not a soft issue, it's a medical one. The good news? Every single one of these risks is manageable. Let's talk about how. Tip number 1, build a daily check-in system. This is the simplest thing you can do, and it could save your life. A daily check-in system is exactly what it sounds like, a routine where someone knows you're okay every single day. Not every week, every day. Dorothy started with something almost embarrassingly simple. Each morning, she sends a text to her neighbor Carol, a retired nurse who lives 3 houses down. The text is never elaborate. Sometimes it's just a coffee cup emoji. Sometimes it's, "Good morning, heading to the library today." The rule they made together: if Carol hasn't heard from Dorothy by 10 a.m., she walks over and knocks. It's been 2 years. Carol has only had to knock 3 times. Once because Dorothy overslept, once because she'd gone for an early walk and forgotten to text, and once because Dorothy had tripped in her garden and couldn't get to her phone. Carol found her quickly. Here's how to build your own check-in system. Find a check-in partner. This doesn't have to be a neighbor. It can be a sibling, a friend, an adult child, a church member. The key is that it's someone who will genuinely notice if they don't hear from you, and who will actually do something about it. Keep it low effort. The reason Dorothy's system works is because it requires almost nothing. A text takes 5 seconds. If you make check-ins complicated or burdensome, they'll stop happening. Simple is sustainable. Have a backup plan. What if your check-in partner is traveling? Make sure there's a second person on the list. Even a neighbor you don't know well might be willing to keep an eye out if you ask. We'd love to hear from you. Do you have a check-in system in place? Maybe you have a creative approach that works really well. Drop it in the comments below. Your idea might be exactly what someone else watching this video needs to hear. Tip number 2, create a real emergency plan. Most people don't have an emergency plan. They intend to get around to it, and then something happens and it's too late. Dorothy didn't have one either, until her son Marcus came to visit and spent a weekend helping her put one together. "It was the best 2 days we've spent together in years," she told us. "We talked about things I'd been avoiding, and now I actually feel ready." Here's what their plan included. Emergency contacts in multiple places. Dorothy keeps a laminated card on her refrigerator with the names and numbers of her doctor, her 2 children, her neighbor Carol, and her pharmacy. She also has these numbers programmed into her phone under ICE, or in case of emergency, because emergency responders know to look there. Medical information where it can be found fast. The same card on her refrigerator lists Dorothy's current medications, her known allergies, her blood type, and her primary care physician's name. If paramedics walk through her door, they don't have to guess. A medical alert device. This was the one Dorothy resisted the longest. She didn't want to feel like an old person, but after her son showed her what modern devices actually looked like, slim wristbands, discreet pendants, even smartwatch integrations, she changed her mind. She wears a lightweight pendant now that has a single button. One press connects her to a 24-hour monitoring center. Some models also detect falls automatically and send alerts without any action required. A home escape plan. Dorothy walked through her house with Marcus and identified the best exit from every room in case of fire. She bought a flashlight for her nightstand. She made sure the key to her front door was always in the same spot. And she added a lockbox outside so that her neighbor Carol has access to a spare key, meaning emergency responders can get in quickly if needed. A trusted contact for decisions. Dorothy also updated her healthcare proxy and shared it with her doctor. If she's ever in a situation where she can't make decisions for herself, her wishes are documented, and her son Marcus is authorized to act on her behalf. None of this took more than a weekend, and all of it means that if something goes wrong, Dorothy is not facing it unprepared. Tip number 3. Strengthen your home security. Dorothy's house on Elm Creek Drive looks exactly like what it is, a tidy, modest home where a single woman lives alone, which meant, before she made some changes, it also looked like exactly what a would-be burglar hopes to find. She didn't need a security overhaul, she needed a few smart adjustments. Upgrade your locks. Dorothy replaced the original builder-grade locks on her front and back doors with reinforced deadbolts. These are harder to kick in and harder to pick. They cost less than $100 each, and she had a handyman install them in an afternoon. Add motion sensor lighting. Dorothy now has lights on both sides of her driveway and above her back door that activate whenever someone approaches. Criminals prefer darkness. Lights send them somewhere else. Use a video doorbell. This was Dorothy's favorite upgrade. She can now see and speak to whoever is at her door from her phone without ever opening the door. A delivery person? She waves them toward a porch. A stranger she doesn't recognize? She tells them through the intercom that she's unavailable without revealing that she's alone inside. Trust your gut on strangers. Dorothy now has a simple rule for anyone who shows up at her door claiming to be from a utility company, a government agency, or a contractor. She does not open the door until she has independently verified who they are. She calls the company directly, using a number she looks up herself, not one the visitor provides, and confirms the appointment. Legitimate professionals will wait, scammers will not. Protect yourself from phone scams. Dorothy now follows 3 rules when she gets unexpected calls. She never gives personal information to someone who called her. She never makes a payment over the phone unless she initiated the call. And if a call feels urgent or threatening, she hangs up and talks to someone she trusts before doing anything. Tip number 4. Fall-proof your home and your body. The bathroom. This is where most falls happen at home. Dorothy added a grab bar next to her toilet and inside her shower. She replaced her old shower mat with a new non-slip one, and she moved her shampoo and soap to a shelf that doesn't require her to bend over or reach up. The floors. Dorothy had 2 decorative throw rugs in her living room that she'd owned for decades. They're gone now. Throw rugs shift underfoot and catch toes. She also tucked her lamp cords behind furniture and taped down a loose section of carpet on the bottom stair. The lighting. Dorothy added plug-in night lights in every hallway, the bathroom, and the kitchen. She also keeps a small flashlight on her nightstand. If she has to get up at 3 a.m., she no longer does it in the dark. Her body. Dorothy's daughter-in-law also gave her a simple exercise routine that takes about 10 minutes a day. It includes seated leg lifts to strengthen her thighs, standing heel raises to improve balance, and slow marching in place. These aren't dramatic workouts, they're targeted movements that address the specific muscle groups most important for preventing falls in older adults.
Dorothy also made an appointment with her doctor to review all her medications because some common prescriptions, including blood pressure medications, sleep aids, and certain antihistamines, can cause dizziness that increases fall risk. Her doctor made one small adjustment that she says has made a noticeable difference. If you do fall, have a plan for getting up safely. Don't panic. Don't try to jump up immediately. Roll onto one side, push yourself up to a sitting position, then use a sturdy piece of furniture to help you stand. And if you can't get up, try to crawl to a phone or press your alert device. Stay warm, call for help, and stay as calm as possible.
Tip number 5. Stay socially connected. Here's the truth Dorothy learned the hard way. You can have a check-in system, a medical alert device, reinforced locks, and grab bars in the bathroom, and still be in real danger if you're profoundly isolated. Social connection isn't a luxury. For older adults living alone, it's a health necessity. And here's what makes it especially tricky. Loneliness often hides itself. People who are lonely frequently don't describe themselves that way. They say they're independent or private or just not social people. Meanwhile, their world quietly shrinks. Dorothy recognized herself in this description about 18 months ago, and she made a decision. She walked into the Boise Senior Center on a Tuesday morning and signed up for a weekly watercolor class. She didn't know anyone. She hadn't painted since high school. She almost turned around in the parking lot. She didn't, and that choice completely changed her daily life. Within 3 months, Dorothy had a group of 6 women she met with every Tuesday. They went to lunch after class. They started texting in a group chat. One of them knew someone who needed a reading tutor for her grandchild, and Dorothy became a volunteer. Now her weekly calendar has something in it every single day. Here's how to start reconnecting, even if it's been a while. Start small. You don't have to join 3 groups at once. Pick one thing that genuinely interests you and show up once, just once. See what happens. Use your local senior center. Most cities and towns have them, and they're often vastly underestimated. Senior centers offer classes, fitness programs, day trips, volunteer opportunities, and sometimes even services like transportation and meals. If you haven't visited yours recently, it's worth a look. Reconnect with faith communities. For many older adults, a church, synagogue, or other religious community provides not just spiritual support, but a genuine social network. If you've drifted away from one, reaching out again might be easier than you think. Embrace technology, just a little. Video calls make it possible to have face-to-face conversations with family and friends across the country. Many communities also have online groups for specific interests that meet virtually. You don't have to leave home to feel connected. Consider a pet. Dorothy also adopted a small dog named Pickles about a year ago. Pickles gets her outside twice a day, which means she regularly crosses paths with neighbors and other dog owners. Dogs are, it turns out, extraordinary social catalysts. Be intentional about reaching out. Loneliness can make people feel as though no one would want to hear from them. That feeling is almost always inaccurate. Send the text, make the call, accept the invitation. The people in your life are usually delighted to hear from you. They're just also busy and waiting for someone to go first. Bringing it all together. Dorothy's story 1 year later. When we first introduced Dorothy, she was a woman living a full and capable life, but with some quiet vulnerabilities she hadn't fully addressed. 6 years of living alone had given her confidence, but also a few habits that put her at risk. In the past year, Dorothy has built a daily check-in routine with her neighbor, Carol, created an emergency binder with all her medical information, emergency contacts, and important documents, started wearing a medical alert pendant, which she calls Harold's peace offering because she suspects he would have nagged her about it, replaced her throw rugs, installed grab bars, and added motion sensor lights, learned to recognize and resist phone scams, joined a watercolor class, and through it built the most active social life she's had in years. Your turn. These 5 steps, Daily check-ins, emergency preparedness, home security, fall prevention, and social connection aren't complicated. They don't require a lot of money. They don't require you to move or to give up your privacy or to admit that you can't handle things. They just require the decision to start. So here's our question for you. Which one of these tips are you going to act on first? Maybe you've already done some of them. Maybe one surprised you. We want to know. Leave a comment below and tell us, what does staying safe and independent mean to you? Do you have a tip, a habit, or a personal story that other seniors watching this could benefit from? Share it. This community learns from each other, and your experience matters. And if someone you love, a parent, a neighbor, a friend, is living alone and you worry about them, share this video with them. Sometimes the hardest part of having this conversation is finding the right way to start it. This video might do that for you. If you found this helpful, subscribe to my channel. We put out new videos every single week covering the topics that matter most to people over 60: health, safety, finances, relationships, and how to build a life that actually feels good to live. Click subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.